Hello, animators and artists. Lauren Ponder is a visual development artist and animator who's worked for Netflix, Rooster Teeth, and WildBrain, and we invited Lauren onto our live stream to discuss two characters they designed for their experiential Pixar in a Box adult story reel exhibition winning animatic Doublecross, as well as a recent animated beat exercise which showcases both characters. So, Lauren, welcome to the stream and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
So we're really excited to talk to you about your project, but first I just wanted to just ask you some questions about yourself. How do you describe your current role in animation, and what does your typical day look like?
Well, thank you for asking. Currently, I am a visual developer in animation. I've, like you already laid out, I've worked for Netflix, Rooster Teeth, WildBrain, mostly pre-production. Maybe one day I'll work on like a post-production feature, but we'll see. And right now, my current day looks like mostly freelance and commission work because right now work's a little sparse. I don't really know what the future looks like. I don't think a lot of us really do. But I'm really fortunate to have people out there supporting me with freelance and commission opportunities. So that's awesome to have.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that your work is in demand. I wanted to ask you, what was your experience participating in the Story Experiential program like?
Oh, fantastic. First of all, I highly recommend it. It's really user-friendly, beginner-friendly, and that's what I was going into it, a beginner, because like I said, I am a visual developer. I don't have experience writing stories in a professional setting other than, the hobby. But they made it so easy to grasp the Pixar storytelling process. They broke it down into creating your characters, outlining your story as a whole, and then act 1, 2, and 3. And then at the end, you tie it all together real nice, pretty, put a bow on it. And then you have like a finished animatic that you can put in your story reel. So yeah, it made it like super accessible for everybody. There was people of all talent levels in it, and just like seeing their progress at the end all come together in a beautiful way. And the sense of community too was just astounding. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and did you expect your short film animatic to get the reception that it did?
No, honestly, because again, I have never produced an animatic from scratch. I've done 2D character animation professionally in Toon Boom, and I mean that's really about it. Years ago, I did some like on my YouTube. I have like some like animatics that I made in Windows Movie Maker, which I don't recommend, but that's why I made them, because that was a consensus that you couldn't make anything good in Windows Movie Maker. So I tried to, and it was hard. So yeah, that was like the extent of my animatic experience. So I didn't expect it to be so well received, Doublecross.
So let's talk about Doublecross.
All right, let's talk about Doublecross.
I think we should start with the characters. Can you tell us about the characters they've developed and where they came from?
Jet Sam and Leon, yeah. So for the program, we were supposed to create characters for our story from scratch. I didn't necessarily, it wasn't a requirement, but I already had two characters fleshed out. Jet Sam, I think I started developing over quarantine. When I was quarantining with my mom, we were watching this show, reality series about rich yachters being terrible to the staff. And the whole time I was just thinking, wouldn't it be great if a sea monster came out of the ocean and just wrecked their day, just really gave it to them. So I drew like a little character reference of Jet Say. Maybe I'll post it someday. I don't think that it's anywhere public. Maybe I'll put it on Patreon. But yeah, I did like a little character sketch, and then I just really kind of fell in love with the idea. I thought that there was a lot of potential for a story there, and ended up developing Leon as kind of his counterpart balance that helps him get in touch with his humanity, so to speak, and kind of mirrors the fact that, monsters can have a human side and humans can be monsters.
So, what was the process for developing the characters of Jetsam and Leon, and how did those characters change throughout the experiential program and then afterwards?
Leon, when I first made him, was initially supposed to be a villain, really controlling, and Jet Sam originally was supposed to like kind of break out of the control that Leon had over him and go off and find himself. That's what I had at mind or in mind at first. And then I realized like Leon has a lot of his own turmoil, I think. And these two characters, there's an opportunity for both of them to help one another find each other. And I thought that was a lot more compelling.
And I mentioned this before the live stream, but I think that like you have a very distinctive visual style, and I was curious about what are some of the sources of inspiration that you drew from.
Thank you so much. So I've been drawing like since I could hold a crayon, is what my mom says, and it's true. I think my style early on was influenced probably by the Fairly Odd Parents and Invader Zim. I was total Invader Zim kid. I love Joan Vesca's style, and it still bleeds over to my art, I think, a little bit, or maybe a lot. I can't really tell. But also, other than that, my one of my best friends, Miranda Parkin, who actually played Eileen in the animatic, she is also a fantastic storyboard artist, and like I've been living with her for 2 years, and after all that time, like I think our styles have kind of bled into one another, and she's definitely been like a huge source of inspiration for me too. So, yeah, I think that sums it up.
What else can you tell us about Doublecross? Can you give us a brief synopsis of the story without getting into too many spoilers?
Yeah. Okay. So, oh, without giving too many spoilers, let's see. What would I should have an elevator pitch. You'd think that I'd have one prepared. I don't. Basically, Sea Monster gets caught up in some wily shenanigans and ends up getting in touch with his humanity in a very literal way, and uncovering that humans can also be monsters.
And how long did the project take to develop during the experiential program?
2 months. So what they
Okay.
do is you do it at your own pace, which is phenomenal. And then at the end of the 2 month development process, you can enter into their May expedition, which is what I did, or their, I think, August one. I ended up finishing Doublecross a lot sooner than I expected. I thought that I'd end up having to submit it to the August exhibition. But I just ended up falling in love with working on it, and it became kind of a passion project. And before I knew it, like it was done and ready to submit. So,
What was the most challenging scene for you to storyboard?
ooh, so there's this scene that's supposed to be like an old-timey silent film. And as someone who hasn't seen a lot of silent films, you might wonder why. Why did I make that creative decision? And I don't know, other than it was really fun, but also hard to kind of put together, transition into, and then out of. So that was difficult. I think that one took the most time because I had a lot of different iterations of how I wanted to do that, and make it interesting without kind of delaying the pacing, which I think I would go back and like tweak some things on it ideally. But a lot of people also seem to think that like it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad I got that reception. But it was difficult, I think, that part.
So you came to this program with experience as a visual development artist and as an animator. How did you feel that your experience as a visual development artist influenced the way that you approach storyboarding?
Ooh, hard question. Let's see. So, um, you do not have to be a good artist to tell a good story. I think I had an advantage, in terms of my art style, having worked in the animation industry, but that does not ever guarantee that you are going to make a compelling story or characters. So yeah, again, like it came pretty easy to me, the animatic part, but writing everything, finding these characters, fleshing them out, um, the beat exercises, that was probably the most difficult thing. But again, experiential, like broke it down really easy, into steps following the Pixar storytelling process, which is what I followed. And it made it so digestible and easy. And I think if I didn't have that, I don't know that Doublecross would have ended up as cohesive as it did, hopefully.
So, what our viewers are currently watching in the corner of the screen is the tactical trial beat exercise that you
Yes.
posted with the characters Jetsam and Leon. It's not the full story. It's not the full short film animatic, which you can also find on Lauren's YouTube channel. But I want to ask you some questions about that beat exercise. So, in that beat exercise, you have Jetsam and Liam. They're in color. The characters, I think you see sort of more finished line art. Was that already material that you prepared when you had the short film animatic?
No, actually. So before the short film animatic, I got my start on YouTube with cringy old animation memes. And after posting Doublecross, I just kind of wanted to revisit my roots and implement these characters and something that I used to have a lot of fun doing. And it was also a good way to test out Toon Boom's tweening and ease in, ease out. So yeah, it ended up being like just a really good exercise to kind of get in touch with drawing these characters polished, and kind of getting a feel for a, I don't know, potential animation style if I ever decide to do more with these characters, which I would love to. I'm totally open to it.
So the process for the beat exercise was you did you draw the characters in Storyboard Pro or Harmony, or like which was the one that you started with?
I actually, so normally I draw a rough in Clip Studio Paint,
Hmm.
import that, and then do the vector lines in Toon Boom Harmony.
Okay, that's an interesting process. So you sort of have the rough in bitmap software, import it, and then use the vectors for cleanup. Then.
Yes, and I'm actually working on full character models for both of these characters, and right now I'm in the process of sketching them out, doing like full character turnarounds, and then I'm planning on importing that into Toon Boom and lining them and maybe rigging them. I'm trying to learn how to rig characters. Again, Toon Boom makes it like really easy. Actually, it's easier than I expected it to be.
Oh, that's ambitious. So for the beat exercise, I'm guessing that you used like a peg to sort of anchor the character to, and then animated that with swash and stretch and transformations.
Yeah, spot on. Actually, yeah, the transformation tool, my favorite.
Very cool. What did you like learn while working on that beat exercise?
A lot about tweening, and timing, which always important in animation. Um, and how kind of like to make my own transitions in Toon Boom because normally the editing program that I use is Filmora, which is really good. But if you want to create transitions in, say, Toon Boom, you gotta like kind of know the fundamentals about tweening and all that. And that was a skill that I was kind of lacking. So I'd like to think that I learned something about all of that along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting because there is software that is very easy to use, and there's software that gives you a lot of control over the process. And I think we lean towards the side of, hey, if you really want to have like the full control over how this looks, Harmony's great for that.
No, it's yeah, I can't
But
recommend it more.
it
I
has
love
a learning
Harmony.
curve.
Yeah, no,
Do you have
agreed.
advice for artists who are interested in creating unique and distinctive characters?
Distinctive characters. Start with silhouette. Get your shape language down. Figure that out first. Especially in animation, you don't want characters that are too convoluted or have too much going on with them. And initially, I think when I first designed Jet Sam, he had a lot going on with him, and I had to kind of backtrack and make him more animator friendly. And that's something that I run into a lot with. Let's see, I don't know how much I can talk about because some of it's NDA, but working in the industry, it's that's a common problem that you will run into if you're doing character design. You have to factor in how they are going to animate, and the time that it's going to take to animate these features. Because even like something like a button or a lapel could be hours of work that you're adding onto an animator's schedule. So it's always something that you need to factor in, and don't be afraid to keep it simple. Simple is always better.
See, that's a topic I love talking about too. Like when you have people who are aware of limitations and strengths of animation, because you see occasionally there are interviews with writers who are talking about their very first animated project, and they'll say things like, "Oh, well, in animation you can do anything, and you have an
You don't
unlimited
have to.
budget," and it's like,
Yeah,
well,
bigger isn't always better.
you know, it's like, yeah, that's true, but then you have like a bunch of incidental characters on screen, or you have a character walking towards the camera with a moving background. Like that becomes really difficult in 2D animation. What
It
are some
does.
things like that you might want to keep in mind as a visual development artist when designing characters for animation?
Well, again, not overcomplicating the design. Keep in
But not like
mind
line
how
mileage.
they're going to look in motion. Creating a like a full 360 character turnaround. Always recommend that because one thing with Leon that I ran into was the little cowlick on the back of his head. I wasn't sure how that was going to look like in certain angles, so I did a character turnaround of his head where I kind of figured out what kind of a Mickey Mouse ear situation, you
Yeah.
know, where it kind of like always faces the camera. So sometimes, again, like the little character details like that look good on paper, but then in practice, you might run into some problems with it.
One thing I noticed with like the animation is you have the characters with different poses. So like to your point of like how do they look like in different angles and different expressions. What sort of poses did you feel were really important to explore with these characters?
That's a good question. I really didn't know until I did the very first draft of the animatic. There were some poses like with Jet Sam, like crouching on the ground, falling backwards in the car, and I didn't have reference material for those. So what I did was the rough like storyboard panels of those, and then I went in and just kind of drafted some thumbnails to see like how I could improve upon it and make it work. And then yeah, when I was happy with that, I ended up going ahead and polishing it up, finishing it.
What attracted you to explore making a short film as an animatic?
Well, this experiential program itself, I forget how I found it, but seeing it advertised around, I was like, I think that's something that I want to do. Because again, I'd had these characters and a story on my mind for a long time, and this kind of gave me an opportunity to explore it. But making a short film was always something that I was interested in theory, but never like had an opportunity to actually like step out of my comfort zone and force myself to do it. So yeah, again, experiential gave me like a really good opportunity to just get off my butt and go and do it. And I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah, one thing I've been really fascinated by is like looking at the sort of rise in indie animation projects like Has Been Hotel and Ollie and Scoops, where people are able to tell either stories that maybe animation studios haven't been buying, or can tell different types of stories and different storytelling to reach different audiences. There's some audiences that just don't really get reached out to for animation. Like I know it's hard to pitch projects that are sort of related to like teenagers, because
Hmm.
there seems to be a lot of stuff for sort of preteen and younger audiences, and then a lot of stuff for like the adult animation area, and then that sort of in between area gets neglected. Um, do you how do you feel about like the rise in indie animation on platforms like YouTube?
Um, Exciting. First of all, I think indie animation has a lot of promise. Going away from corporations, and just in my experience, working with corporate isn't always better. Sometimes it can kill creativity. Not gonna lie, and I think being able to crowdfund things is a phenomenal way of giving power back to the creators, because there are like a lot of niche audiences for things that deserve their story told too, even if it doesn't make millions of dollars. It doesn't have to.
Yeah, I really find it enheartening, I guess. I don't know if there's a less fancy word for that, but like I find it makes me optimistic when I see that there are ways that people can say, "Hey, I want to see this project exist. How can I get involved?" So I think that's really cool. Um,
And it always helps,
yeah.
if you're working on your passion project, if you're excited about it and coming from a place of authenticity, other people are going to connect with that.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is what inspired you about sea monsters?
Oh, what inspired me about well, gosh, I feel like everything I kind of do has a nautical touch. I started a graphic novel like, oh my gosh, I think it's almost 6 years old now. Wow, called Biofin Corp, and it was about an underwater lab of fish people. And now I've got an animatic about a sea monster, so I can't keep away from nautical themes. I don't know what it is. I say it with these octopus earrings. I really love marine biology. I always have. I loved snorkeling with my family. Growing up, we would take trips down to the Austin, Houston coast, and over to Mexico every once in a while, and that's why I love being in California now. We have I love being so close to the beach. Oh my goodness, having palm trees outside because I was originally I was born in Oklahoma, so it's a landlocked state, keeping me away from the water. And now I'm out here and close to the ocean. I love it. But yeah, I've always been like really into marine biology. When I was a kid, I wanted to work at SeaWorld, and after the release of Blackfish, I can't
Hmm.
say that I wanted to after that, but I thought that I would be a marine biologist if I wasn't an artist, and I ended up just kind of wanting to combine the two a little bit.
Is part of it like the idea that there's just so much we don't know about what's in the ocean? Like
Yes,
it
yeah,
has so much
definitely.
space for a giant sea monster.
Yeah, yeah, I think because a interest of mine aside from that would be space, which is it only comes second to the ocean because like the ocean is accessible. I could walk 3 miles to it right there and just be in basically an alien environment. Like it's crazy how much we don't know about it, and it's on our planet. Like that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, like with land, right? You have satellite images of everything. So there isn't like a hill from like behind which there could be a dragon lurking, but in the ocean, who knows?
Yeah, there's no telling what's down there. What we've only explored like 20% of it, if that's still correct. I love ROV videos too. That's a really good source of horror oceanic inspiration.
Hmm. I also wanted to ask too, because you have experience in animation. Did having more visibility onto the like animation pipeline influence the way that you storyboarded your project?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. Because you have experience with animation, I was wondering if your experience with the animation pipeline influenced the way that you approach the project.
I would say so. One of the first things that I worked on in terms of like in-house animation was I was working at Surfer Jack here in Santa Monica with Swampy Marsh, Bertie Peterson, and we had a small films division at the time. And one of our clients was Adrian Pastor, and he was working on a short film that had like an animated opening and gonna pat Toon Boom on the back again because yeah, we used it to do the full length animated opening for it. I don't know if the short film is published anywhere. I know that it was making rounds in film festivals, but I am so sorry. What was the question again?
We're just asking, like, if your experience in animation and like your knowledge of the animation pipeline influenced the way that you approach the storyboarding project.
Oh yeah, I think it definitely like gave me a home field advantage probably, and yeah, so we used Storyboard Pro, like I said, for the like short film animation opening, and I kind of approached it with the same approach as we did for that, and it all kind of worked out. So,
Well, was that the first time that you used Storyboard Pro?
no, I had fiddled around with it a couple times before then, but I think that's the first time that I dipped into it professionally.
Yeah, because the drawing tools in Storyboard Pro are the same as the ones in Harmony, but it is a different like way of thinking about a project because
Right.
it is very focused on panels. I was just wondering, like, what were some of the things that you got to try the first time while working on this project?
So I actually did not make Doublecross in Storyboard Pro. I hand drew each individual rough panel in Clip Studio, imported it into Harmony, and then did all of like the animation tweening in there. Storyboard Pro has a lot of advantages. I would love to like do an animatic in it eventually. I ended up not using it for Doublecross.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I've heard of people who've used Harmony for storyboarding, and that is always exciting because it is interesting to see people use their software in novel ways. Um, what do you think, like in terms of the in terms of Double Cross? What scenes do you think viewers connected with the most?
Connect with the most? I've seen a lot of people resonate with, there's kind of a part in the third act where there's a slowdown and we get a more quiet, intimate moment with Jetsam and Leon, and just kind of finally get like a chance to see how they bounce back and forth and interact, and bring their walls down. And it seems like that resonated with a lot of people, and I'm glad. I think if I were to go forward, with writing them and exploring their story, I'd like to do more of that and kind of explore the relationship that they have.
I think there are a lot of animators and storyboard artists who get really excited about action scenes, right? Like it tends to be a thing that you see a lot of like clips of like really cool flips and fight scenes. But I think sometimes acting and dialogue can be an interesting challenge where like how do you make that as captivating and as interesting as possible? How did you approach
Absolutely.
the dialogue and acting in Double Cross?
Yeah, like you said, I would love to get better at like really tight knit animation action scenes. I don't know that I've ever like exercised that before. I'd like to now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I there's something about slowing down and just exploring an interaction between two characters, and just, like a character study of these two that I find really appealing. And with Jet Sam and Leon, yeah, like I it just it came natural to me. I don't know. I think it's really important to approach them as people, and have like those moments of humanity between the two of them, and exploring what both of them have in common.
Did this project change the way that you thought about the storyboarding process?
I think so. I do. Because again, initially, I didn't really have experience with storyboarding, professionally at least. And well, they walked me through the Pixar method again with experiential, and the three act structure, which I had to completely write my own short film essentially, and then map all of that out in a storyboard format. I'd never done that before. So it definitely changed my approach to it because I'd never approached it like that. And yeah, I'd say it's the pretty a pretty solid way to do it.
Yeah. So just like talking briefly, like what is like the outline of the Pixar method?
So basically, you start off, well, they start you off with developing your characters, having those ready, and then the first the first beat would be the question, not the question. They start you off with everything was like this until one day, and then because of that, and then until finally. So it's a very like simple but effective process, that again like just makes it like basically you can break down any Pixar movie, I think, into like those act categories, and it works.
But I think like the sort of overall idea is that like the characters are in a different place at the end of the story than at the beginning.
Yes, yeah,
Because I think
that's
what happens with like a lot of people who aren't used to storytelling is you'll tell stories where a bunch of things happen, um, but the characters don't really experience any growth or change.
right. There's no consequence, and Um, why would you expect someone to care about your story if nothing happens in it? That is a comment that I see come up a lot. And it's good. Like, why should someone care about the story that I'm telling if I'm not saying anything in it? So yeah, if you're telling a story and your story has characters, they need a character arc. They need to be different by the end of it than they were by the beginning. So yeah, I think Jet Sam and Leon specifically, Jet Sam found like his humanity. Leon helped him find it and kind of came to terms with the fact that like he's really not cut out to be a killer, and maybe Jet Sam doesn't want to be. Again, I'd like to really explore their characters and their story a little bit further because I think there's still a little bit more left to tell.
So you're interested in developing this a little bit further then?
Yeah, I'm totally open to it. I've got some ideas.
Um, One thing I wanted to ask you was we talk about some of the design elements on your characters. So we know Leon has this sort of cowlick at the back of his head that sort of flips when it moves. And Jetson has sort of like shark-like features almost. I'm just curious, like where was some like the inspiration for the decisions on like how to sort of work on like the teeth and the sort of elements in like the ears that are sort of a little bit pointy. Like what was the process of bringing those elements in?
I really wanted Jet Sam to read, like you said, is shark-like. So having a lot of sharp features, more pointed nose, focusing on angles with him was like pretty crucial to his design. And Leon's like a little bit more languid, loosey goosey, kind of like gangly and awkward. So I wanted some S curves in his design for sure. That I figured would be like a lot of fun to animate. I just kind of imagine him being like kind of a little bit of a bumbling fool. And I also thought that those two design choices would contrast each other really well when they're standing next to one another.
Yeah, you have one more curvy character, one more angular character, and I do think that contrast does work really well.
I hope so. That's what I was going for. So I'm glad to hear that.
What are some other like elements that people might not notice about the characters at first blush?
On first watch, so okay, I noticed a lot of people didn't pick up on this. At the very beginning, Josiah, the suit on the ship, is wearing a teal suit. Then Jet Sam comes in. Also, spoiler alerts, by the way, if anyone cares. Jet Sam comes in and feasts upon these rich people, and then later, when he's captured, he ends up coughing up the skeleton of Josiah. Um, and what he's wearing later is the suit that Josiah was wearing. And so that's where he pulled the folder from, because it's also the folder that we see in the beginning. And it seems like a lot of people didn't pick up on that, and maybe I made that a little bit too convoluted. So I think I might change that to going forward, or at least make it like read a little clearer, perhaps.
I think it's a cool touch. I'm curious, like, do you have like a whole mythology worked out for these sort of like sea monster Leviathan characters?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you have like a whole mythology worked out for these like sea monster Leviathan characters?
Yes, and I would love to expand upon that. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for speculative marine biology that I could have a lot of fun with. Like, what sort of species is Jetsam? Are there other species of Leviathan? Do they have different powers? What are they limited to? I would love to explore all of those questions and more. Uh, and I think it would be a lot of fun. And then also, like, as a whole, people's relationship to Leviathans. I have like a kind of a concept that I want to expand on, where like Jet Sam crosses the paths of some fishermen who have like fished out the corpse of a Leviathan, and they're treating it just like a catch of the day, but Jetsam like recognizes their face and has memories of this person and who they were, but the fishermen are just treating it like a catch. So I feel like there's potential there with something.
Do you feel like it's like an opportunity to explore sort of like our relationship with the ocean?
I think so. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, 100%. I think we should respect it more. And yeah, I think a character study of the ocean is kind of maybe what it boils down to.
I think that's fascinating.
Thank
Um,
you.
Lauren, do you have any other advice for artists who are interested in making their own animatic?
Yes, just start. Even if you don't think that you're going to be good at it, you might not be, and that's fine. We all start from somewhere, so just pick it up. You know, make sure that you're getting your advice from reputable sources. I watched a lot of YouTube videos from people who are in the industry to kind of start me out. And yeah, I'd say I haven't been to art college either. So I see a lot of people who think that they absolutely have to get into Cal Arts to go anywhere. And
That is an expensive program.
yeah, it's an expensive program. I think it is great for some people, but it's not a necessity. If you have the drive and the willpower to learn things on your own, experiment, maybe pick up a mentorship, that's really, really invaluable.
Yeah. So you mentioned that like you didn't go to school for animation. What was your like? How did you get into the industry?
So initially, I planned on going to Cal Arts. There were, excuse me, a handful of national portfolio review days around the states, and so I attended those. And I had like Ringling review my portfolio and Cal Arts, and they gave me peer feedback. And then I would take that feedback and apply it to my portfolio, and then I'd show back up and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this now?" Until finally they were like, yeah, we'd like to have you. And I had like a fleeting thought. I was like, okay, if my portfolio is good enough to get into a really like exclusive art college, could I just use the same portfolio to apply to jobs? And the answer was yes, you can. If you have to pretty much already be a professional to get into a really good art school. And if you are already that good, a lot of like smaller studios will have you, and from there you can just kind of climb the ladder and be making money while you're doing it instead of going into student debt. So that's the angle that I took. It's not for
Yeah.
everybody, but I'm really lucky it worked out for me.
Do you think it's helpful to move to like a big production hub city?
I don't see. Ooh, it is and it has been, but I don't know if it's going to be
Hmm.
long term, if that makes sense. Again, with all the indie support and the opportunities for people to create like their own productions, smaller studios, I think going forward, you might not have to live in LA to make it in the animation industry. So it's been beneficial for me, but a lot of the gigs that I've gotten have been like remote. So I wouldn't say that you have to live, near Hollywood or Burbank or where all the studios are. It's not a necessity, but it does help.
Were there any resources that were really helpful while you were making your animatic?
Yeah, actually. So I mean, well, it helped that I had been working alongside studio veterans Swampy Marsh and Bertie Peterson when I was working at a Surfer Jack. So they had given me just some really solid advice in like production in general while I was working alongside them. So I like tried to kind of apply some of the tips that they gave me. And I think honestly, yeah, I have them to thank for a lot of that. That's why I dropped them in the special thanks section, because even though they didn't have anything to do with it directly, they were really fantastic mentors.
That's really cool. I mean, one of the things that I've heard about like mentorship is that your mentors don't always even know that they're your mentors. You know, like
I don't think they
you're,
did.
the piece of advice they give you could be really profound to you, and for them, it's just Tuesday.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it was a small film division, a tiny venture for them, and for me, I like it's gonna stick with me for the rest of my life. So, yeah, I don't know if they know like how much it impacted me, but it really did, and I'm always gonna be grateful for that.
That's so cool. Lauren, is there anything that you wanted to talk about with your short film that I haven't asked you about yet?
Um, let's see. Oof. Yes, I have a lot in mind for these characters' future. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully render Doublecross as like a finished short film. I would love to do that if I have the opportunity to. I would like to at least like do the first minute of animation,
Hmm.
and I have been working on that. It's been a slow crawl because I'm also, doing work on the side, but I would love to give it like the full attention that it deserves to kind of flesh it out more, and then also maybe explore the story either as a graphic novel or like series of like short webisodes. I don't know. I'm open to anything. I'm so involved in these characters, and I'm glad that other people seem to be too.
Do you find sometimes challenging to work on really ambitious personal projects while you're also working like your day job in the animation industry?
Yeah, no, it can be really challenging. But at the same time, that's why I think it's really important to be working on a passion project, because if you are super into it, it doesn't feel like an obligation, really. It's easy to just jump straight into it at the end of a long work day, because that's what excites you. And again, if it excites you, it's going to excite other people.
Lauren, where can our viewers follow you on the web to see more of your work as well as the Double Cross animatic?
You can follow me at AvaFade, AVAFAID, on Instagram and YouTube.
All right. Well, thank you, Lauren, for joining us to discuss your work on Double Cross, and to our audience for joining us for today's discussion. Artists who are interested in making their own animatic can download a 21-day free trial of Storyboard Pro from the website. The website is toonboom.com. And if you're interested in character design, you won't want to miss our panel discussion next Thursday, where guest experts will discuss what artists will want to consider when designing characters for animation. So things like line mileage that Lauren has discussed will be very relevant there. So we look forward to that discussion, and be sure to tune in next week.
This is news to me. I'll be there in the audience.